AI and national security just collided. Here's what every practitioner needs to know. So this past Friday, a dispute between the Pentagon and one of the leading AI companies escalated in a way that every security practitioner, AI builder, and national security professional needs to be understanding. Not because of the politics, there's plenty of that to go around, because this is the first time a real stress test of how frontier AI integrates into national security. And the questions it raises aren't going away regardless of how this particular situation resolves. Let's break down what happened and what it means for practitioners. So here's the timeline. The Pentagon, now officially rebranded the Department of War, have been in contract negotiations with Anthropic over the deployment of its AI models on classified networks, a contract worth up to $200 million. Anthropic was the first frontier AI lab cleared for classified environments. The sticking point was the two usage restrictions Anthropic wanted written into the contract: no use of its models for mass domestic surveillance of Americans, and no use in fully autonomous weapons, systems that select and engage targets without a human in the loop. These restrictions have been in Anthropic's usage policy since June of 2024. The Pentagon's position was straightforward. They need AI providers to agree to quote-unquote all lawful uses and not to carve out exceptions. Defense Secretary Hegseth gave Anthropic a deadline of 5:01 p.m. Eastern, Friday, February 27th. Anthropic held firm. President Trump then ordered all federal agencies to cease using Anthropic's technology, and the Pentagon designated the company a supply chain risk to national security. The same Friday evening, OpenAI announced a deal to deploy its models to the Pentagon's classified networks. CEO Sam Altman stated that the agreement includes prohibitions on mass domestic surveillance, autonomous weapons, and high-stakes automated decision-making. OpenAI also negotiated the ability to maintain its own technical safety stack, restrict deployments to cloud-only environments, and embed forward-deployed engineers with clearances. So both companies expressed similar concerns about the same use cases. They took different approaches in terms of negotiations and got very different outcomes. That's the fact pattern. Let's talk about what matters for practitioners. The first thing that jumped out to me is how fast a major AI provider was removed from classified environments. Regardless of the reasons, this is a live demonstration of vendor concentration risk in AI-dependent systems. If you're building mission-critical capabilities on top of any single frontier AI model in government or the private sector, you need to be thinking about continuity of operations. What happens if your AI provider becomes unavailable for any reason? Regulatory, commercial, geopolitical, or something that we just witnessed? Multi-vendor strategies, abstraction layers, and contingency planning for AI supply chain disruption should be on the top of every CISO and CTO's radar. It's not theoretical anymore. The second takeaway is the governance gap. This dispute essentially comes down to a fundamental question. Are existing laws and Department of Defense directives sufficient to govern frontier AI military contexts, or do we need a new contractual, technical, or regulatory mechanism? The Pentagon's position is current law, the Fourth Amendment, FISA, Executive Order 1233, and various DoD directives on autonomous weapons already cover these concerns. Some AI companies argue that frontier models introduce capabilities that existing frameworks weren't designed to address, and that additional safeguards are warranted. Both sides have legitimate points. Existing law does restrict domestic surveillance and require testing and validation for autonomous systems. But those laws were written before models could process millions of data points in seconds or be embedded in systems making time-critical decisions at machine speed. For practitioners, the takeaway is clear. Don't wait for this to get resolved at the policy level. Build your AI governance frameworks now and make them robust enough to handle ambiguity. Third, and this is the one I find most interesting from a security architecture perspective, the OpenAI deal signals a shift toward technical enforcement of AI usage boundaries rather than relying on solely contractual terms. Cloud-only deployment means models don't run on edge devices. That's a meaningful architectural constraint. Maintaining control of the safety stack means the provider retains the ability to enforce behavioral boundaries at the model level, and embedding cleared engineers on site provides a human verification layer. This mirrors what we've seen across cybersecurity for decades. Policies and contracts are necessary but insufficient. Technical controls are what actually enforce boundaries. If you're deploying AI in any sensitive context, government, critical infrastructure, financial services, you should be thinking about your technical enforcement layer and what that looks like. Usage policies alone are not enough. Finally, zoom out. What we're really watching is the first major collision between a frontier AI capability and national security procurement. These models are genuinely dual use. The same technology that summarizes documents and writes code can process intelligence data and potentially guide autonomous systems. We don't have mature frameworks for managing that. The defense industrial base has decades of experience of procuring jets, satellites, encrypted radios. It doesn't have a playbook for procuring foundational foundation models from commercial AI labs that serve millions of consumers. The playbook is getting written right now, messily, publicly, and under pressure. Every practitioner in AI and security should be paying close attention, because whatever norms emerge at this moment will shape the landscape for years. So that's the breakdown. No matter where you come down and how this was handled well or poorly, the underlying questions are ones our entire field needs to engage with. If you're not thinking about AI vendor resilience, governance frameworks for frontier models in sensitive environments, and technical controls for AI usage boundaries, now's the time to start. Anyways, drop your thoughts in the comments. I'll see you in the next one.